last time so I could actually read the details. And I thought, then she gave me a computer because my laptop was dead. And
The first day,
Yeah, mine too.
And so then I looked over and Jeff had it was like,
what big?
it doesn't differentiate.
Isn't it great? Yeah, it's great. We keep a little tarn over.
Yeah.
Really 3-4 nights a
They
month
suffered
with the
with the
weekend, whatever.
The only thing is when I bring my laptop.
Yeah, crawl in bed. Yeah, he gets right up into bed. So he pushes
But he just
Kelly
doesn't
out
want
of
to
bed.
do it in
It's
the
like the big
background.
bed with me.
It's quite large,
We watched the
but-
Sound of
I went
Music
there.
together last night. I thought I'd accomplished everything that the next generation has been introduced to the Sound of Music. But it is wonderful having him.
I
didn't like his elbow.
I see people that, you know,
So you do
I saw
Skype.
you
You
were
weren't
in
in it.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Not in it
having
now.
conversations where left off, you know, it's like,
Like, who are you that shows up a few times a year?
Can't see.
She's bad. You know,
Nicholas was here.
How old is
she? I've been back.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
you just jump in front of
First
the
time
car.
I've been there, so
Dean left the double. I see the doctor soon.
Get a big adjustment. on
And then
it.
Dan drove in today and I was like, there's the car. And then I was walking across, I was walking up,
and everything.
but I didn't stop, but he did.
Is it something
No,
like
they
that,
have,
right, Joe?
they have their own, it is a.
Joe, thanks.
Yes, it looks like it's
$100, but
welcome.
it's on par with
straight
our
Yep.
money.
Oh, okay.
Yep, I was just turning off the air and just getting back home, so.
So exciting.
Is there a Friday?
Yeah, I mean, my kids are only managed to get
To do something like
across the border.
It's good.
she's not like
Those little girls. You know, it's that age. Like, why would we do it when, you know, why would we do it when we couldn't afford it? And, you know, they were 5 and 8.
something else going on in the house, which is.
They just get such a introduced in June.
No, they had a good time. Spent a lot of time in the ocean.
You'll love it.
Snorkel.
What are you doing in January?
My son's having a baby girl.
Oh, Sunday.
So,
It's pretty exciting.
There's nothing better.
because you can always leave.
That's it.
In the home, they come and visit and it's just annoying. Come and pick them
I
up.
just do fun things with her.
Yeah.
That's the best thing, is that everything's fun.
His shoulders
All right, it says 6:30, I'm going to call it in order, but everybody please stand and pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So the first item is the consent agenda. There are 3 items, the minutes, the civil service sick leave request, and special education. Does anybody wish any of those items to be removed? If not, is there a motion to accept the consent agenda?
Yes.
Dan, is there a second?
Yes.
There we go. Jeff. All in favor, please say aye.
I'm voting.
No? Are we voting? Okay.
They're voting.
Oh, here we are.
Yeah, I'm on the wrong page. So, guys.
Okay, so Karen, just,
So, I think everybody voted aye.
Yeah.
okay.
Motion carries 7-4-0.
Done.
For the good of the cause, would you wish to address the board, Sarah?
I would love to, and I did sign in, so.
Thank you.
I just wanted to tell you all how happy I was that I saw on this year's budget the return of a library media specialist to the district. It's something that I understood when it was a financial necessity back in the day, but it's something that's been missing. And as some of you know, I'm kind of biased because I started my career as a librarian, but I have seen the value for my own children in the school district and others having worked in the school district, the value of having a full-time library media specialist in both buildings, in each of the buildings, partly because they touch everybody. It's not just one discipline that's being supported. They support math, they support language arts, they support band. You name it, and a library media specialist is supportive of that. So that's all. Thank you. I was thrilled to see it back in the budget, and I understand it's always difficult to make those choices, but I thought you should know that I appreciate seeing that.
Great.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. And that's our segue into our discussion item, which is the updated budget information. So Roger and Leonard, would you like to walk us through that?
Want to go through the PowerPoint?
Sure.
Do you have it?
Mm-hmm.
We'll go quickly because it's mostly the same with the final changes. And I think we've provided you other information where you know where a lot of those changes are. Can you put it up here?
I'm trying. Working on it.
Are you connected?
Is it not? Oh, you know what? I have to transfer the line.
Are you in the
Oh, it's back to the budget meeting.
Yeah, I'm connected.
Yep.
Can you make it view? You go like.
Now I do.
Slide master. Okay.
Why doesn't
I
it?
don't know
There.
Okay.
Start a-
And now
start a
everything been working
slideshow?
at all?
What's that?
Forgot that slide master, that was wrong.
Start a slideshow.
Start a slideshow.
Oh my gosh. All right, where am I at?
Go down
I'm
to
sorry.
How about normal? Up here. Yeah.
There you go.
Let's stick with that. Okay. So very similar to last times. This is our fifth and final draft. There we go. And so we try and cover a lot of bases, and we always try and keep this up for also because this becomes a public document and we want the public to be able to see the big picture. So going on to the next slide. So I tried to outline briefly what some of the changes are. Now, you all know that we increased our state aid, but we didn't get to where everything that we hoped for was in there. So you're going to see in here, we still have the board still has the choices that we outlined before, but I made a recommendation. And so you need to know that because you may want to discuss whether it's the right recommendation. And that has to do with the position. So in here you're going to see librarian included, RTI math eliminated. That would be a choice that the board has. I am recommending it, but and I know members of the board will want to discuss that. So I want to put that out there. Just right. I put this out as a recommendation, not as a given. Okay, but it does come across that way. So retirements are included in the salary projections. Salary projections are based on the new contract. This is all the same. Here's the recommendation that we include a librarian, that we eliminate the math, and that the request has been to make sure that there was money in there for the AD, so that is in there. Tax cap changed to 2.96%. That's been since the beginning. We kept in the bus and the pickups. The health insurance was at 2%. The ERS, we made the adjustment a while back. The teacher retirement was at 10.63%. And we included retirements, resignations, and sabbaticals. Next. But the highlights are here, and these are some of the changes. The CPIU was at 2.13%, so our allowable growth is at 2.0. That hasn't changed. Our final tax cap is at 2.96. That hasn't changed. What has changed is that last bullet. New York State aid final budget has gone up to $2,966,971, and that is almost $99,000 more than the executive budget proposal, which means that's what we put in our budget. So when Leonard made the budget, he used the executive proposal, and when the legislature approved this, it came in at $98,753 higher. So that's where the additional money came to bridge that gap in our budget. And it's also $84,000 or so more than the legislature approved last year. So it is a significant increase, and I provided you a spreadsheet and some information just so you could see percentages and all that. Next one. So this is all based on, again, a lot of this hasn't changed, actual salaries, actual BOCES increase, actual health insurance premium increase of 2.0%, all the TRS, all the ERS. So our final budget, and this is in Leonard's spreadsheets, $19,292,671. Our levy, $15,592,53. And so we have changed items in the budget, and again, Leonard will go over that in some greater detail, to where our budget now matches the tax cap. So there is no more gap, but we did have to make reductions in order to get there. And so we'll go through that in a minute. Just to update this, you remember that blue stands for what the CPIU is every year. The red stands for what the school district's budget has been every year. And if you go back to 06-07, the school district's budget increased by 5%. It didn't really coincide with the CPIU. You can see it did not coincide for a long time. Until you get to 13-14, 14-15, you can see now how the budget is a reflection of the CPIU. So because the CPIU did go up a bit for next year, 18-19, or the one we rely on, which is last year's, has gone up, our budget has increased that amount. So when you see these changes in our budget now, they're paralleling closely the CPIU. And so that, this graph is just I've just adapted this by adding the projections for next year into this. So you can see how these parallels continue. No change here. We still have, over the years, still have reduced our faculty by more than our enrollment change. And I'll actually have to revise this if, in fact, we do one new position, then I'll have to revise this for next year. So here's the recommendation again, and where some of the money comes in, right? So recent changes that you'll find in there right now without any changes include a librarian, and that's a $70,000 increase with benefits. It includes an athletic director. I believe Leonard calculated in 0.5 because the FTE will depend on the teaching area. We have 2 replacement pickup trucks, 1 new passenger bus, just as we've had in there all along. There's also an additional line now providing a specific amount of support for SAT and AP costs that we've discussed in these sessions a few times. And then there have been modest reductions made to a few different areas, including conferences, extra duty pay, and technology, which will require a little more oversight on the part of the administration to make sure that we stay within the budget.
And Roger, would you explain why, going back up to the SAT and AP costs, why bridge courses aren't included in that line?
Yeah, or I'll explain why it's hard to explain, but so the bridge courses are college level courses in which our students take classes here at the high school. They're taught by our teachers. Those teachers are approved as instructors for the community college, North Country Community College, and their curriculum's approved, and therefore kids who pay for the credit earn credit through North Country Community College. So they're considered college level classes, though they're different than AP, so there's a different way to get college credit through high school coursework. The institutions themselves have wrestled with this idea of who's going to pay the tuition cost. And I have a lengthy explanation, which I still haven't provided. I'm sorry, I could have provided this in background. I'm not sure if you would have found it interesting or not. But a lengthy explanation from the institutions in which they have decided that for a few different reasons, and I guess I'll be vague here, but for a few different reasons, they cannot and will not accept payment for bridge classes from the schools themselves. That they'll only accept tuition from the individual students. And therefore, the only way that, I'll just say, the broader community can help students with the cost is to provide some form of more traditional scholarship. Our school district does offer scholarships, but those scholarship monies come from outside funds and separate sources. So we didn't put any money in here for the bridge courses because the institutions won't accept funds from the schools. They would accept it from any kind of external fund, and certainly this has been a topic at the Ed Op Fund where they've picked this up a little bit and hope to do something about it, but haven't. There's no promises there either. But they would be the kind of fund that could support it. Any questions about that? I could provide you with that explanation. I do have it, and I can maybe put that out there later on. So most of our unknowns we've answered, with the exception always of special ed costs. We never really know what our special ed costs are going to be. We have a very good estimate. We follow the annual review process, just as you do really with all of the special ed programs. So we do have a sense of where we're going. The problem with special education costs is they depend on any needs of students living in your district, and that could change at any time if a student moves in or if a student moves out of the district. Special education costs change. We don't have any heads up that we're having any new costs that have been unforeseen. We don't have any expectations that our costs right now are going to be reduced in any significant way. We've therefore budgeted pretty consistent for next year what our costs are for this year. So I left this on here because this is really what we charged the board with doing, was to recognize that you have that you as the board ultimately have the choices to make based on some of the decisions, or you have decisions to make based on the options that are out there. So what we tried to do last time was to sketch out what some of those options were, and so we had in here the math RTI teacher, the conferences, the extra duty pay, the hardware materials. We actually did not cut this. So again, our recommendation was to cut less of this, to cut that. We also had some unforeseen additional costs that Leonard can talk to you about. We didn't cut this. We don't have any. I don't believe we have any additional reductions, but you'll straighten me out on that if I've got that wrong. We did find an additional amount coming through state aid. We did not opt to use additional fund balance, but the board could. So these were options that we posed to you at the last time, and they still exist. So again, what I've put out there is, here's a recommendation. The board can choose to go in a different route based on some of these areas and items. So that being said, Leonard will take you through the details. And so this is the draft A5, because it's the 5th draft of the budget, 5th time we've come to you, and this is the time that it balances. So you want to, any questions before we go on to Leonard?
It comes up in conversation a lot about making the choice between a librarian and a math teacher, and
Yep.
how do you measure? And you make a really good point that they touch everybody, where maybe the other one doesn't. But how do you put a metric on that and say, well, it's better to do this or that?
So, the best answer would have been to not have this choice, right?
Oh,
yeah.
I agree.
And so, that's what we're shooting for the whole time. We're shooting for that.
Yeah.
I am going to look over you, Colleen, because I know that you want to speak, because I know that you want to champion the math position. I'd like to hear you do it, actually.
Okay.
So, because we do have different perspectives on the board on this. And
Well, it's in the community too. A lot of people are asking that question.
Yeah.
Like, why
so there are perspectives. So I'll just tell you where my recommendations come from, because there isn't a magic bullet here to say this is better than that based on but here's where mine is coming from, and it's I'll keep it simple, and it's a lot of what we've already heard, which is that so our librarian is we reduced our librarian staff in the past, and so I see this as a rebuilding effort, not as something brand new, but as something getting back. What I would say is to square one. Right now, both schools are short in librarian services, and we see it on a daily basis. So the librarian addition would provide more support across the board. And that would be across the board at the elementary and across the board at middle high school. The math is more targeted, more focused. Matter of fact, the position itself is a targeted position, right? It's RTI. It's not just a general math teacher. It's an RTI math teacher, which is what we wanted, because we do need support for kids who are struggling on math. Absolutely. So how am I choosing one over the other? That I see that I see the librarian having a broader impact on programs and kids, and the math having a targeted impact on specific kids. Specifically, it's about, if you want to know, numbers, because we've been stewing over numbers today too. You're talking about a third of the children at the elementary school receive some kind of RTI services, response to intervention, remedial support in some way. About a third of them receive that. About, of those, we divide those, if you want to look at it this way, into 3 groups. The third group, called Tier 3, being the group that needs the greatest intervention. The RTI math teacher specifically would be there to have direct instruction over that group, the third group, and to provide oversight for the other 2 groups. So the teacher would have some kind of impact, we would hope, positive impact, on about a third of the students, with about 5 or 6 per grade level being their direct instruction students. So I think that would be beneficial. I think that would be helpful, but it is a targeted group as opposed to the broad, and that's really where my recommendation comes from.
Right. Thanks.
Can I turn it over to you?
Yes. Roger and I have been talking about this for a few days, and I've reached out to Leonard because since I came on the board a very short period of time ago, I have had people in the community, mention a few things to me. And one of them was the math RTI, and perhaps some of their own children were, actually struggling. And I am so respectful of Sarah and her profession and Roger's recommendation, but I just started doing a little digging and asking some questions, and teaching is my background. So I know what it's like to be a teacher in a classroom where you are potentially trying to deal with 3 different levels of competency. A student that could be below average, one that is average, one that is above average, and that is difficult for a classroom teacher to do. So I, just for argument's sake, and this is also coming from my business background a little bit, if you only have so many dollars to play with and you can only do so many positions, I was arguing for the full-time librarian at the high school, where it would seem to have a larger impact on middle and high school students versus the full-time librarian at the elementary school, where it's somewhat of my understanding that they would be quite happy with having the high school librarian simply oversee their program with a TA. There was a short poll done today, a very quick one, asking the faculty, what's your input? What would you like to see in your building? An RTI math teacher or a librarian? And 80% said they wanted the RTI math teacher. And I think if you are helping possibly 30% of a student population in that building to increase their math skills, not that the librarian's not important or an integral part of their education process, that's 30% of children. And I don't think it's a secret where we stand globally in math and science. I just feel that if we only have X amount of dollars and we can only hire that one extra person, I'm just lobbying to hire that math person for the building, and maybe next year, if there's additional funding, go back and look at getting a full-time librarian for the elementary school. And I think on some level, with all due respect to Roger too, we do have to listen to what the faculty is saying and what they need in their building, because they're the ones that are working in the trenches, so to say, every day with their children. And that's just how I feel. And I think also if we looked at the data from the reading RTI program, I think that it would be pretty profound to see how the children have improved in that area since that program was implemented X number of years ago. So that's just my view, and I don't know, I just feel really strongly about it from a teacher and a parent perspective of what I'm hearing from people in the district. So.
And I can't argue with that. I guess my issue is that, I look at that question, and I would have wish that that question maybe was worded differently, rather than what do you prefer, maybe ask it along the line, which do you think would provide the greatest good for the greatest number of students and programs? I think that would be more, more useful to me in terms of deciding which way do we go. I look at the research that Roger included, and it seems to me that a full-time librarian, you get some of the benefits that we'll get with an RTI person. If the librarian is in fact doing what the librarian is told the librarian should be doing, that those kinds of programs will be taking place and that kind of support would be provided to some degree. Do you
think there's any possibility of going into that? And again, I am admitting that I'm new to this, but using the additional fund balances, at what point do you as a group look at that and saying, is this a worthwhile enough venture to tap into that fund balance and have that math person in the building, even if it's not the general population, but 30%?
And I'm not adverse to doing that and considering that. My only concern, again, goes to the sustainability question.
Yes.
We've always had fund balance, or we're going to use fund balance, but we've never had to draw from it in the 6 years I've been on it. We've never once, we've always had surplus. So that is an option. And I keep looking at that unemployment fund that started out when we first started it at $100,000, and that's only growing. I mean, it's now $300,000. So
388.
Yeah.
The last
Pat,
3 years, so.
I think you had something to say.
Yeah, I just didn't know if we didn't get the numbers, the class numbers, so I don't know. I mean, if you're talking about teachers having to teach to 3 different levels, if there's a shift where if there is a math RTI person and then that helps take some of the shift off of the teachers, could the classroom numbers be changed? So where there's 3, what are the numbers as far as you know, 3 sections of kindergarten, 3 sections
Right.
of first grade?
Yeah.
I mean, if the numbers are getting down to 12, 13 students in a class, could that shift so that then there's focused, there's one less teacher
Well, right
and
now,
there's money?
we do have students who will pull out of part of the regular instruction, not the whole math class. So, you know, there is all group math instruction going on. It is different sometimes in different grade levels. You won't see much of this at kindergarten actually, but you'll see it in the other grade levels. We already do have kids coming out. They're being served by our teaching assistants. So it probably wouldn't change that dramatically. It might make some changes because there'd be more available support, and so because we would be, you know, kind of adding support without necessarily pulling from the teaching assistants in that area. So it is possible that more kids could come out, but we already are. I guess my point is we're already doing that, so it's not like an all or nothing. It would change things. I can't tell you exactly how it would change because it would look more like the reading program that we have now, which means the tier 3 kids would you know, just have that a little extra move pretty much out of the classroom. So there'd be a little of it, but it wouldn't be complete because that's already happening.
Yeah, no, what I mean is that one of the grade levels, if they have low numbers, that they have 2 teachers instead of 3.
Yeah,
And
I see
then
what
the
you're saying.
numbers would be higher, but if there's a full-time librarian and there's a RTI math focus and then there's already the reading focus, would those class sizes be manageable? If the numbers,
I mean, the class
closer to
sizes
20,
are,
then-
we're not projecting major changes next year. They're becoming pretty consistent, actually. We don't have like a 60 and a 30.
right,
We have in the 40s. Some are lower, and I believe one's higher.
Going by the report card, if you look at first grade is, now this would be last year, but that would be second grade this year. It ranges from 53 to a low of 42.
53 is the current.
Second grade's the high one.
Second grade is 50, second grade would be 52.
Yeah.
Do you mean, Patty, for example,
Two
let's say,
classes of 20 kids.
so there'd be
Right.
another
Instead of
teacher
3.
kind of off on the side that we could use? Is that what-
Budget-wise, that would be one less teacher.
But I think they're looking, at least my understanding is with the math RTI, they're looking for a specialist in math, not a general elementary.
No,
ed.
no, what she's saying is
Okay.
cut a position and then
I see,
then
I see.
add
Yeah,
it.
Okay.
or just repurposing them.
see.
It would
But
actually
every
be a
time-
change in the
yeah,
budget.
Every time,
Exactly.
yeah, but every time we go to cut a position and make classes at the 20, we get a lot of pushback from the public. We just need to
No, I
think about that.
understand
yeah.
that, it's just also having class sizes small, having specialized reading RTI, having a specialized math RTI, having a full-time librarian, justifying that much support for the numbers that our school has.
Mhm.
Not that it wouldn't be great, and that's why I would have a hard time supporting both positions when we are then also having to cover the math sabbatical position and adding an AD position. You know, that would be adding a lot of positions when our student numbers have remained fairly stable. And we've added positions in the last budgets, you know, moved
Yes, we have.
0.5 people to
Yep.
full-time, so,
Mhm.
so I understand, you know, that
Right.
we aren't exploding with staff, it's just, that would be a lot of staff being added to a certain number of students. I
I don't
think
see
that
an
would be hard.
the AD and the sabbatical as added positions, though. I'd be
The
careful.
AD is.
Well, the AD 's
added.
gonna, yeah.
Yeah, but we have to go back to
AD's gonna stretch it.
pre-Donna.
Right, well, I mean, if
So,
we're doing that,
yeah.
then there's not a discussion about the librarian, because that was a pre,
Yeah.
that was same year, I think,
2010 or
actually.
2011.
And so there, you know, there are a lot of pre-situations that
Yeah.
supported the staff, so not, I mean, I favor math and feel that needs the support. I guess instead of, I have a hard time looking at adding a full position, and I think we tried to look at adding a librarian to just the high school, and that isn't the amount of, I think that was looked at when the librarian position was cut, and that they would just oversee the elementary, and that didn't work because they really needed to be there in order to do certain aspects of it, and it pulled them away, so they, then it was the split, so.
Yeah, we even had a librarian and a half for a while, right? We had 1.5 FTE
Right.
in the library, and then that changed, I think, started the 2014 school year. So we went from 2 to 1.5, which
Right.
did allow for some of that, you know, oversight, because we had the 1.4, at least I think, I wasn't really present for most of that.
There were a lot of partial people.
And then it went to
For a while.
1.0,
There
it was
were.
split in 2 ways, so.
We had a .25, remember that? That was, got a little.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
We had to know our
Envision.
fractions.
And hence the need for math.
Right.
So I mean, overall, I mean, that's just the overall budget and how, and how the number of students and where the needs are and where the staff is, you know. And again, if there's less of a need for TAs, and then we can shift, restructure.
And we have done some shifting after the budget,
Right,
when it's been possible to do that, when we've been able to reduce somewhere else and add something else. And so, you know, it's always possible that can be the case this year too, but, you know, we don't have those kind of projections. So, you know, we're just counting on what we have right now.
Yeah. But if there was like a 0.5 librarian added so that the part-time person was at the elementary school, if then there was somewhere else a shift so that then there was room for the math RTI budget-wise.
What if we did the math RTI as that replacement for the full-time librarian and then just the half-time librarian at the elementary school? And if you had to tap into that additional fund balance, you're only tapping into it for a half-time person, and you're still getting your half-time librarian, but you're using the budget to pay for the full-time math RTI.
Yeah, I mean, one of the problems with, there's two problems that come up when you start having half people. And we certainly have done it, don't get me wrong, I mean, I've sometimes advocated for it, right? But, you know, the first one is that as soon as you hire anybody in any capacity, there's an upfront cost of benefits, right? So even if you hire somebody at point 2, contractually, they're entitled to full benefits when they're in the teachers or when they're in the faculty, teachers or teaching assistants. So once you get to that 0.5, you've already paid 2/3 or maybe 3/4 of the cost of a full-time person. That's one. The other one is that it's hard to staff, it's hard to hire a 0.5 person, in some areas more than others. And it's hard in the high need area. You know, we tried that with our industrial tech person a few years back, and we managed to succeed through some, you know, some good shared work or with Sarah Lake for a year, but that stopped, and it was either going to be all or nothing. And librarians right now, kind of like special education, school psychologists, maybe a little, these are high need areas, and it's there aren't that many. So I don't know what kind of applicants we'll get for the full-time position. I'm hopeful if we go that route that we'll get, you know, a good number of strong candidates. Half-time, I'm more skeptical that we would be able to find somebody that would work out. So, but I can't tell you that until we try some of these things. That's one of the two problems with half-time people, is that additional cost and the difficulty in finding the right person who can do that job but will only do it for half-time.
If we look at this beyond this fiscal year, and this is as a long-term solution, the math teacher's an obvious thing that needs to happen. I mean, how much, I don't know, we can't control the future, but how much control can we place on this and say, hey, next year, that's a priority. Let's do the, or the other way around, either way, it doesn't really matter. If the board commits to it and says we will make that part of next year's budget, knowing that we need that position, is that something that's ever been done?
We did, well, I don't know quite so clearly or stated, but I think that's how we operated this year. Mm-hmm. We proposed these very positions last year,
right,
and we're waiting to the bitter end for state aid. We didn't get it, the budget came in late, and we, you know, chose to go with what we had, so we didn't add in either position last year. So then we put them right back in for this year's budget, and this is where we are. So it certainly, I mean, it's really the board decision.
Right.
Then the board could certainly make it a priority.
I would just say I would really be hesitant to tap into the fund balance to do anything like that, like as an ongoing full-time position. As an emergency, that's one thing, but to make it, you know, because it's only going to last so long. I mean, so it's something that.
Yeah, we keep tapping, we keep going deeper and deeper into the pockets of the
They'll
fund
be gone,
balance.
right, yeah.
We went up 30,000 this year into the fund balance, so.
Well, on paper it does.
On paper, but my
Otherwise,
my
you know,
savings account is on paper too. and I
Yeah,
don't
but
like
at
to
the end of
get
the year, it always grows, I guess is where, you know,
Yeah.
what we have to remember.
Well, yeah.
So I guess the option is, you know, math, full-time RTI, full-time librarian, or full-time librarian, or tap into the fund balance. Seems like we're rejecting the fund balance option.
That's just me, but
Me too. Right.
I think fiscally it's not responsible in the long term. It's not sustainable.
Is there any attachment, Leonard, to fund balance to the capital project? In other words, we fund.
Not the capital project that we have coming up. I mean, we're planning on floating a bond for that,
Right,
but
but what if we run into cost overruns?
absolutely, we'll have to tap into it. But one of the ones I want to mention here, and I know everybody's aware of this, we have $1.5 million that we decided we were going to use part of our fund balance for, and that's going to happen in the next year and a half. So that expense is going to happen. That's the capital project at BOCES that we're going to fund out of our fund balance. So $1.5 million is going to be depleted. So just so everybody's aware of it.
So what's our consensus so that we can, in terms of math, or I know.
I'm the math
we've got
person.
We've got math.
Or do we reduce the amount we're taking out of fund balance and don't do either? Hate to be the devil's
Yeah, that would
advocate
be
there,
another
but
option.
save the taxpayers some money.
I'm still voting for the math.
But that's an option, I mean.
It is an option,
Yeah.
it definitely is an
Yeah.
option.
Can, if we're talking about the overall budget and the positions, can you explain the where we're at with the AD? So is it will it be like the last time that it's, I guess, is it advertised
So Leonard
right
put,
now?
yeah, so Leonard put a position. Right now we've advertised for 4 or 5 different openings that we have. One of them was AD/teacher, because we did meetings ago. And you say, well, what if you hired a full-time phys ed teacher, what if you hired a full-time AD who's a phys ed teacher, and that person taught 3 classes and did phys ed, like we're getting back to that point. Could you then hire a half-time phys ed teacher? And the answer is yes, and that is definitely one of the options. Phys ed being one of those that you could probably get away with the 0.5 in a way that you really can't with, probably math, although you never know. So all those are sitting, and we've got 5 different positions that we're considering, and we're also considering the AD as part of that.
So are ads out?
They were, and they closed on the end of March.
So we're advertising for 2 math positions.
No. So here's what we just advertised for.
Okay.
Okay. We had the deputy treasurer position,
Okay.
which we'll appoint later on tonight. We advertised for AD/teacher, a little with some wiggle room, right? Phys ed teacher,
Okay.
secondary math teacher, kindergarten teacher,
Okay.
and
Right.
5th grade with preferred math concentration. Okay, so all of those are replacement positions.
Okay.
You didn't hear me say 1-year math teacher. Matter of fact, that's because the board hasn't yet acted on
'Cause we don't
some
know
of the
this.
requests yet. And you're going to get those next meeting. You're going to get as much as I've got. That's what we're working on.
Right,
A week
but
from
it's in
today.
the budget for that.
We did put it in the budget because
Okay.
we see it coming, right?
Okay.
So we budgeted for, we don't want to be caught short by virtue of just acting, in this way. So we did put that in the budget.
Okay.
So we expect at the next meeting to have more than one, actually, temporary leave requests for different series of reasons that you'll
Okay.
see pretty soon.
Okay. But those.
And those then we will advertise, that'll be the next round of advertisements. And those will be some that you know and some that you're not aware of yet, but I'll be sharing that with you as soon as I can.
Yeah, so those went out, the ads went out, and then the applications have come in, and then now you'll start.
So we have a
the
process,
interview
we have a process underway right now.
Okay.
We've got different search team leaders. We've got application review teams and then interview teams. And right now the application review teams coming and going today, yes. Application review teams have been reading through applications. We'll get to that point where we have 4 or 5 interviews.
Okay.
And then go from
I
there.
just, the last,
Yeah.
I think the ads weren't out the last time we had a meeting budget like this. We got the one that, and then I wasn't sure, the
Yeah.
next one that you weren't out, so I didn't know where we were
Yeah.
at with that.
They went out sometime in early March,
So,
and they went to our normal local or regional papers, and then we also have a national website that we use, School Spring. And so that's where they went. And sometimes they get shared from there to other places. Also went on our own employment page. And now you won't see them on the employment page because they closed at the end of March. And we took them off because we're already getting people who don't know that we have deadlines. And so, but yeah, so they've been out there.
Okay.
Did you get applicants for all of them?
Yes. Some piles are bigger than others.
Okay.
Do you want to go on with the spreadsheets, or do you want to stop and, you were proposing some kind of consensus? I don't know if we're there or what.
I don't think we're there yet.
Maybe if we go on to.
Why don't we go on?
And we'll come back to this, because I'm on fine.
So we want to go to the
Rick, I'm kind of considering Rick's suggestion.
I just thought I'd throw it out.
They got that on camera, I'm sure, but
Rick,
sorry.
Karen, note that next time.
Sorry. You would love that.
So the next sheet we want to look at is, I think it's at I, under the budget, it's 410, it's the budget estimates.
Is it that one?
Yeah, it's that one right there. But we want to go, I mean, this is on the PowerPoint, right?
Do you want me to stop the slideshow? Is there something?
Probably,
about
yeah,
it?
because we're going to go through the actual documents and they're not on the PowerPoint, all of them aren't on the PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Balancing all. Okay, so now we want to go to
I think it's I.
4I, 3I.
3I.
There we go. Good. So this is our overall budget estimates with a projected budget, estimated budget at this point at $19,292,671, and that represents a 3.04% increase from last year. The estimated levy at this point is $15,590,253, and again, that's right at our tax cap that we're allowed to go to, and that's 2.96% increase from last year. In the major categories, our salary increases are $291,894.
That's higher than last year now, not the fourth
Right.
estimate, but last year's budget, or this year's budget, right?
Yeah.
The 17-18 budget, so it's
Yeah.
$291,000
Yeah,
higher.
higher, yeah. The Social Security and Medicare tax associated with that, those salary increases, $22,330. Our employees' retirement, we had a reduction in that at $32,452. Teachers' retirement is at $16,212 more than last year. Health insurance at that 2% increase represents $162,883. And our additional increases and decreases, which are program increases, contractual expenses, BOCES, there was no real equipment increases. It was pretty much status quo from last year. Overall, those increases are $107,921, and the major increase of that $107,000 is the BOCES increase, and that increase alone was $76,786. So that's the snapshot for the overall budget. Those are the major categories. Again, we're at 3.04% and 2.96% on the levy. Are there any questions on those major categories? If not, we'll go to the next slide, which is the 3J, the budget detail. I'm not going to go over every line here. I'm going to cover the overall amounts at the administrative, the program area and the capital area unless there's specific questions. But overall, the administrative component is 2.38% increase from last year. That's on page 3. The program component, which includes the salary increases that that Roger mentioned, that overall increase is 3.33% increase overall. Capital component is 2.03% overall and on page 9 you can see the grand totals of 3.4%. Now the actual line item details that we made changes from last budget to this budget, I'll go over that. That's on a separate worksheet or a little spreadsheet that shows the proposed adjustments. Let's go down to page 10, which is the overall revenue. You can see that that top line up there under the 18-19 new budget, that represents our tax levy is $15,590,253. And the big increase again is in the state aid, and that represents that 98,000, those numbers increased. And you can see there's no increase in the fund balance that we had from the last budget as well. But the majority, all of the increases here were in the state aid line, and that was that roughly $99,000 increase. So again, overall, 3.04% increase in budget, 2.9% increase in the levy.
Leonard, is
tax levy.
Not that it's a big deal, but how come the BOCES aid drops if our usage is going up? Isn't that, if you have an answer to that?
Right off the top of my head, I don't have an answer for that.
Okay.
So I can give you a general statement. So some of the increases that we've had are unaidable increases.
Okay.
But you know, I don't have any specific line items, but that's more or less probably the issue.
Thank you.
You're not talking about a whole lot of difference here, $4,000, yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, let's go to the next thing is the budget reduction proposals, and that is 4C. And here's the details of what we were mentioning before. So if you look at the top line, those are the positions, that top half of this reduction proposal are the positions. The first two on there, we had those were part of the budgets in the past. The third one there is the RTI math teacher. The budget adjustment that we had in before, we had that position in there, so we took it out on this one. The athletic director adjustment, which is a $25,000 increase, and that's in salaries only. And then there was an extra $25,000 that was put into health insurance. Let's see. Then the next one was the extra duty pay. We're being a little conservative here, but we're going to try to reduce that extra duty pay by $4,000. So the total proposed adjustments in the salary area was $36,550 decrease. On the other adjustments at the bottom, up through to BOCES there, we already discussed those in previous meetings. The curriculum development line is a new one. We have a $5,000 reduction in there, a proposed reduction. That next BOCES line was a pricing update that we got since the last meeting that we had. And it was, at the time, I didn't know we were going to get those price increases. They came in late, so I had to make adjustments for that, and that's $16,370 So we had to add that stuff in on the BOCES end. The next one, the computer assistance hardware, we reduced that by 7,000. And that is in the equipment area. That's one of the things I mentioned earlier, and I forgot to mention that earlier. It's $7,000 decrease in the equipment area instead of maintaining the dollar amount that we had last year. That comes out of the computer assistance hardware area. And then the last one is the testing support for the SAT and the AP classes, and that's an estimate at this point of $6,000. So overall, grand total decrease in our in the proposed budget was $124,471 in the adjustments. Are there any questions on those areas? And the next slide we'll look at is the budget reduction schedule. That is 6E. This snapshot here shows we had the 5 budget meetings where we started at A1, and you can see how we've closed the gap, and then at A4 we actually had a little bit of an increase there, but after our state aid and the minor adjustments that we made in the budget, at A5 we're right where we need to be at 3.4%, and the levy is at 2.96%. So are there any questions other than what we've already talked about?
Do we need to review the fund balance at all? Because that was part of the conversation before.
Sure.
That's
Want to go to
on 7A.
Yeah, it's the same, I mean, it hasn't changed.
No. So, yeah, let's just cover these. Right now, our restricted fund balances, we have 4 restricted funds. Reserve fund employment, the liability claim. Now, that reserve for the liability claim was established a while ago when we realized we had this $1.5 million bill that we were going to have to pay for the BOCES capital project. So it's only a portion of that. So it's a third of what we actually we're going to have to pay. But that's $561,000. Reserve for the tax certiorari is $375,000, and we have a consistent repeating number of tax certiorari's that equal that $375,000. Some of them come on some new ones come on, and some of them go off. But it's a revolving cycle, and that amount has been consistent for probably the last 5 years, anyhow. So, and that could happen at any time. We don't know, so we got to keep that reserve in there. So that's $375,000. The reserve for employee benefit accrued liabilities right now is at $1,127,768.31, and that is for so everybody understands, that's for the payout when we have teachers retiring or other staff retiring. That's their accrued sick leave that they're entitled to, that we have to pay out by contract.
And so will we be pulling from that?
We will be pulling from that. I'm estimating this 18-19 year is roughly $120,000 is going to be pulled from that. The next thing is our assigned fund balance. That's the appropriated fund balance at $490. That's where we stand right now. Of course, we'll be moving that at the end of this year. It'll show $520 when we go into the new year, if that's what we approve. The assigned reserve for encumbrances, these are carryover encumbrances from the previous year. They're obligations when we close the books at the end of 6/30, at the end of the school year. Those obligations that are on the books that we have to pay for, those are encumbered balances, and they get moved over to the following year. And our balance this year in the 17-18 year is $126,329.19. Now those have been liquidated at this point, but we have to carry that over, so that's an assigned reserve. It's an automatic reserve that happens every year. It changes from time to time. You can see in this, at the end of 16, it was 93,000, and then we had $32,000 increase that moved it to 126. And then the last one is our unassigned fund balance. That's the money that we can use for anything we decide to use it for. And that's at $1,252,000. So that's where we stand on our equity. I can make a general statement overall. We are financially sound. We just got our Moody's report. Actually, I got that today, the final. And that's the investors' research service that they put out. And it's very, very positive for our school district. So when we go to float this bond for the capital project, this is what that's, we'll have a real easy time floating that bond, I believe. So.
And how when they rate the schools, is it the same as they would rate a private corporation?
I think they're a little bit different, but we're rated at an A, small A3.
Huh?
So we're very well, very high rated. Yep.
So we're back to needing to make a decision. And I guess there's three options. One is the librarian and drop the math. The other option is drop the librarian position and add the RTI math position. And the other is to drop both of them, or schedule, and reduce the number from that we're pulling from the reserve fund, the unrestricted reserve fund.
Is there not an option for the, and looking at sustainability and if it would be able to continue a point, and again, what would the number be, but if there was, if the librarian position was a 0.5, where it would change at the middle high school and stay the same as far as the coverage at the elementary school, to then allow possibly for funds.
So the difference in cost for that, if you went with that, right? So
right.
Let's say you went with a half-time librarian instead of full-time, you'd still be adding a position.
Right.
And adding a person.
Right.
0.5, that would cost about, I'm just going to say, $50,000 as opposed to $70,000 because of the upfront costs of benefits, right? So you'd be saving about $20,000 there. That $20,000 would not get you a new position, like a new half-time position or a new part-time position because of the cost of benefits. Right. So you would reduce, basically, I think if we did that, we would reduce our expenses by $20,000 or put that $20,000 elsewhere, but without, it wouldn't create an RTA math position, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, I know it wouldn't create an RTA, but I'm just wondering about with the number.
If we could do both, 1.5.
Yeah.
Which means that, I think, based on the $50,000 figure, we would have to find another way to come up with $50,000.
It would cost an extra $50,000.
Okay.
Versus 70.
Right, versus 70 for full-time.
Well, if it was on top of this, if what Patty's asking is, could we do a full-time RTI math and a half-time library media specialist, which I think is what you're asking, then what would that cost? It would cost, these are round numbers, $50,000 more than what we have here.
Right.
So we would have to either tap into the fund balance.
Versus hiring two full-time librarian and full-time RTI math,
right.
Then it would be 70 versus 50.
And a part-time,
It's $20,000.
the RTI position you feel needs to be full-time?
I think so. You know, something is better than nothing, right?
Right.
So right now we have nothing.
Well, and the reason I'm saying that is for the sustainability. So say next year there are significant changes in the government, and then we're not getting funding, and we can't support 2 full-time librarians. If we did it in this approach, then there would only have been the shift at the middle high school. The structure of how the elementary school library ran would have stayed the same, and then to reduce it by 0.5 wouldn't be that, if we're adding a position and then we find that we can't sustain it.
Yeah, the sustainability question comes up all the time, right?
Yeah.
Because we're all worried about it, and I'm worried about it too. But here's where I've come down on that, which is, everything's tight. We want to build towards the future. We have to do it gradually. We can't do it in a big way, and even that might hurt us at some point down the road if funding hurts us. At that point, we may have to make reductions.
Right.
And again, if I were sitting here next year or the year after, and instead of having $98,000 more, we were down $200,000, I would be saying to you, we didn't want to do this, but we couldn't sustain some of these positions, and we would choose which positions we could
Right.
afford to reduce. It's not something I would want to do, but that's what we would have to do.
And then as far as the RTI math program goes, if a person was put into that position, it would be there to help the different grade levels. If that had to go away because the budget can't sustain it, it would be additional help that was coming, and then not.
Yes.
As far as.
It would be one more, or the way I would look at it, it would be one more year of additional help.
Yeah.
And the librarian position would be the same thing. It would be one more year of, fully staffed library. And I've been thinking, I think about this all the time, right? When we went from two teachers in 4th grade to 3, you remember that?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, we all knew that, it's possible things could go south on us. We all knew. And so, my way of looking at it was, all right, we could either look at it as, oh my gosh, we're going to have to backtrack, which is going to be painful, which of course would be the case. Or we could say, yeah, but for 1 year, we're going to have 3 really, great classes in 4th grade. That's just the way I look at it, because we can't know the future.
Right.
And there are some limits placed on us with the tax cap, with the state budget. So, I don't have a great answer for you there.
Is it possible, kind of segueing on what Patty was somewhat suggesting, that a part-time RTI and a part-time librarian, it may not be a perfect scenario. If you're giving 50 grand to each position, that's 100 grand. It's going to be 30,000 then that we have to come up with versus, is that something that would be more a consensus possibility to at least give them something that they can work with?
Yeah, can you hire a part-time librarian?
I don't know.
But if you didn't, if you advertised for it and you just didn't get strong, if it's budgeted for that, and then you just can't find the people to fit it, then a decision is made.
Yeah.
But at least budget-wise.
We did that very same thing when we budgeted for a half-time family and consumer science teacher.
Yeah.
We never hired that person. We got close once,
Yeah.
but we never hired that person. And the reason was, same reason, couldn't find a half-time person because it was that hard to find a full-time person. Couldn't find a half-time person. We ended up not hiring anybody and using, I don't know that we actually had a great plan for using that money. I don't know that we did. It was kind of tight time, so we probably just, shored up some usual holes.
If it was just not something that could be found, then the money was budgeted, the money was there.
The money is still there.
Not used.
Right.
And then it's allocated somewhere else in order to make sure that the students have the support that they need.
Yes.
And there'll probably be quite a few variables with the multiple positions being hired as far as salaries.
We're already sort of using that flexibility idea with the AD.
So, right.
So Larry, you were going to say something?
Yeah,
you know, you're looking at hiring a quality staff member for either one of these positions, and you're looking at hiring them at $25,000 a year. That's gonna be very difficult. So just so everybody understands, I mean, $25,000 a year, there's a good chance that you could, well, essentially, there's a chance that you could get somebody that would work part-time, possibly for the benefits. But, I mean, the younger teachers, the cream of the crop is not, they're just not gonna be taking a $25,000 a year job. It's gonna be so difficult to get somebody that, just so everybody's aware of that. I mean, you guys are the ones that are making the decision here, but that's a tough one.
We want to make it based on reality.
Yeah,
so.
that's exactly right.
And what's the RTI, it's a K through 6
K-5.
certification?
It would be, yes, it would be certification with, we would hope,
A
like
focus
the
in
5th
math.
grade, a math background.
Yeah.
Can you remind me again, in my old age, this sabbatical? We have $77,000. Does that include the current half-time salary for that person
Yes,
and then the
the
replacement?
change, yes, the change for that sabbatical, let's see here, it's, let's go to the budget reduction.
It's already been
It's
approved,
four,
hasn't it?
4C.
Well,
Yeah. So next.
That additional, the adjustment for the sabbatical was a $10,411
Right.
increase in our budget.
So if this math teacher decided not to take the sabbatical, what would the return be?
10,000,
Only 10,000?
Yeah.
It's not a big, okay,
right.
all right. I thought it would be much larger than that. I won't hire anybody either.
So what we have that teacher going out, and then we have to pay their half-time salary,
Right.
plus we have to hire a long-term sub, so that's the difference there. So if that doesn't happen, then the difference here is $10,411, that'll just go away.
Okay, so
So we're not talking about a lot of money on the savings there.
we're spending money on vehicle leases, a bus. Those aren't going to be in next, we're not going to do that again next year because we just did it. So that money is available going forward to
Right.
sustain a position. So if we did fund it out of a fund balance this year, it could be funded out of, our taxes and other income next year.
Mhm.
Because there's expenses that we're spending this year that we're not.
Yeah, and again, I mean, things change.
Right.
Next year, who knows?
Yeah,
Who
well,
knows
up
what
to
we're gonna be,
$300 a barrel.
who knows what we're gonna be needing,
Right,
you know? Yeah, that's the gamble you take.
right. I just thought, it doesn't make sense to do something like spend money and not get a great benefit, like you just pointed out. And if you're gonna do it, we should do it, and do it right. Or don't do it.
But we have had a history of finding, there have been people that have joined the district that started off part-time and then turned into full-time and then.
when there were plenty of teachers, now there's a teacher shortage, especially in math and science.
Especially in math, science, and some of these specialty areas, yeah.
Yeah, but if we're not gonna ask for a math teacher, or we potentially try to
Sure.
find one part-time.
Yeah, I'm not saying it couldn't be done, I'm just,
Right. All right, so we got
So
any
we're
further with
still,
this?
I'm not sure.
We've gone backwards.
I'm just gonna throw my bottle at Rick again.
So I'm not sure where we are. It does seem like I'm hearing more of a leaning towards math, although I'm not sure if I'm not sure I'm hearing from everybody, but the people that are speaking, there's definitely
I'm totally on the
Into
fence,
that.
by the way. I'm not
Yeah.
really one way or the other. Can you just, again, I mean, you came to the conclusion that the librarian was the better choice. Can you just, one more time, why?
The simple answer was that one librarian impacts the entire school district.
Okay.
The rest of the story is in sort of the details of some of the stuff from the last meeting or the meeting before that,
Right.
which is, some of these areas that we think were deficient in, including research. And I think, Jeff, you had asked for some research backing that up, and I did dig into that.
Right.
I think some of that's there. And I think some of it was persuasive. But the bigger answer is a broader impact.
Mhm.
You know, and in my way, first of all, I would like to do both. I would,
Sure.
if you want to do both, I'm game for that. Let's do both. But if we can't do both, then I guess what I want to do is I don't want to do nothing. You may still choose to do nothing, but I don't want to do nothing because I want to see us make progress, and I would like to see us make one big step rather than two little ones. And that's where I would come down on the part-time things. The part-time things are possible. There are ways to go, and you may want to choose to go that way. But I would like to say, okay, well, if we can't accomplish it all, let's accomplish this, and then next year, let's accomplish that. And that's where I would go with that.
Okay.
And I also then go back to your thinking, you know, why not consider doing both this year and using extra from the fund balance? In that if next year we can't sustain it, we've had 1 year where we've had the ideal situation. Why not do that?
That's great.
It doesn't, I mean, it really is not going to impact the amount of taxes that people are going to be paying. I think we should
Our
consider.
fund balance is pretty
healthy.
close to the maximum it can be anyway.
Well, yeah,
It's over.
but it's over, but the thing is, here again, by the 1920 year, our unassigned fund balance
2020.
with that additional $1 million coming out of our unassigned fund balance, it's gonna be down. If you're looking at it right now, it's at, I'm on the wrong report
Unassigned
here.
is
Unassigned is
1,200,000 plus the
Yeah, it's gonna be,
500,000 that we have
it's
to-
gonna be down there, we're gonna be well below 4%. You know, and we wanna be, we do wanna be careful with,
Because we're laying people off.
And Rick, you brought up a good point that we wouldn't have those additional expenditures, or someone did on the side, the following year, that, you know, we should be able to,
Well,
sustain.
I don't know that we can always count,
You
that we
don't
can
know
just
that.
count on that.
There's a lot of unpredictable
Yeah, there always
expenses
is,
that are out
but-
there. Like,
I just hate to see this upward trend of taking from the fund balance.
Right, I
because
don't wanna
that's-
see that either.
has to terminate.
Yeah, but the bottom line is, we don't take it. I mean, we put it in here to balance the budget.
well,
but we don't
let's put it
take
this way, we haven't taken it, but it's in there as a safety net. So if we ever, I mean, I can tell you this year, I know we're gonna be a lot closer than we have been in the past because of some of the things that we've had to do even in the 17-18 year budget. Well, like I said, we took the cushion that I had built in to the health insurance, and we're right down to square one. If you're looking at next week when we look at the budget status report, you'll see that that's coming down a little bit, but I'm projecting about possibly $12,000 left in a $3 million budget in health insurance left over. And it's always, you know, I always put in there for 5 changes. We've had more than those changes. We took out, we had 3 changes in there last year, and those 3 happened. We have a 4th one that happened. So we're at a point right now where we've really taken a lot of the cushions that were built in over the years. We're really depleting those, and we depleted again this year. So eventually you're going to see us being at that point where we're going to be using some of that appropriated fund balance that we have in the revenue. It's going to start happening.
So you had said that you would like to, see a step forward and not 2 half steps. But 1.5 steps, if we did one of the positions of full-time and the other one of 0.5, and then if it's budgeted for that, then the details on which, or the decision on which turns into the 0.5 may reflect the board.
We could do that, but we'd have to pay for the extra 0.5.
No, I understand we'd
Yeah.
have to pay for the
Yeah.
0.5,
So that's another
but instead of
$50,000.
adding, right, but instead of adding 2 instead of taking two big steps, instead of adding two full
Yeah,
people.
no, agreed.
But if we're serious about it, let's just throw the other 20 grand in. And
Right,
get it
right,
done.
yeah.
Yeah.
Is it really
I'd
worth
pay so much for getting half,
20
you might as well
grand?
spend 20,000 to get the whole thing. But-
So in the negotiation process, if we can guarantee that the fund balance won't be greater next year than it is this year, the contribution, I propose neither, but I would never go that direction. We do need to take a step forward.
Yeah.
It's just which.
I'm in agreement with going forward with one
I am too,
and
yeah.
doing it right, and then if we can do both, great, but it doesn't sound like we really should, I mean, from a fiscal standpoint.
No, I think, yeah, I think you've got to balance it, and I think
Yeah.
one step forward is better than
Than none,
anything.
yeah.
So it comes down to.
It's better than 2 half steps.
Yeah.
Is it then fair to sit here and say what the greater need would be if we perhaps tabled the librarian till next year and brought the math person in this year? You know, if you have children that are struggling in math versus children that might need additional research skills or whatever at the elementary level, which is the greater need? It's kind of like triage. I mean, you know, what do you need the most of? And
I think you gotta defer to these guys.
yeah,
for
I'm
that.
still arguing for the math that, you know, and table the librarian to the following year and see what our fund looks like next year. I just,
That's a great question. I can't come close to the answer.
No, nor can
That's
I.
why
Yeah, I think I gotta defer to Roger.
I threw to Roger on that.
and Leonard. You guys do it every day, you know what the big impact's gonna be, better than we do, better than I do, So, I'm gonna go with the
I did,
library.
I would stand where I am, and if you want to go that route, great. If the board says we're going a different route, I will certainly carry that out too, and it's not, you know, again, I'd like to do both. That's the
So-
bottom line.
so here's an
That's what I
option.
do the whole time, so.
Here's another option.
Your option? Did you just come up with another?
So,
Hold it out here.
So I'm trying to help you guys.
Shouldn't give him a hard time.
So you leave the budget where it's at, you advertise for both, the RTI, and then you see which one, if you get a real good librarian, then you hire the librarian, you put the RTI off. If you see that there's an RTI person there, you hire the RTI person and leave the librarian off.
Yeah, can you really do that? Call people in for interviews for a position
Sure,
that may
why
not
not?
exist?
Why can't you?
It
I mean,
does exist, you're gonna
You
make.
just
a
look
decision.
to see if you got the best person.
Well, and, I mean, ultimately, when we approve a budget, we don't approve a librarian as the board. I mean, we are approving the overall amount
The amount, right.
of money, and we are providing information as to where the funds are being allocated, but it's not a
Right.
signed
Right.
contract that there will be that position.
Later
It's
on.
having the funds
Yeah.
to accommodate it.
Support it.
And then later on, we would create the position,
Right.
one or the other.
Right. I mean, we're not creating the position when we approve the
No,
budget.
no. That happens
That's a
later.
good point.
But to be consistent, and we've had this conversation before, we haven't always done that. When positions have been created through the budget process, this board has opted to just consider that an approval of the positions.
Right.
When that hasn't happened through the budget process, then the board has approved the creation of a new position.
So-
I'm not sure how, actually, I'm not sure how consistent we've been with that either.
So we'll
But that's-
propose one position. We won't tell you what it is.
All right, I mean, I'm telling you, I'm telling you where I would go with it,
Right.
just so you know.
Yeah, we've had
You know.
this discussion.
But, again, it is the bigger picture.
And I agree with Jeff, I would go with your recommendation. I think you have a better feel for the day-to-day and the benefits. So I would support the librarian position.
Anybody else wanna weigh in on this?
Still on the fence. I mean, I see the value of both.
Right,
Yeah.
but that's a hard decision, it's gotta be, we have to
I
decide.
mean, I do see that the librarian's going to touch more people. It'd be great if we could have a librarian with math skills, I guess. But
NED skills.
I understand those that are really struggling, they're really struggling.
Yeah.
You know, it's,
And intervening at the elementary level makes all the difference.
Right.
What about Leonard's proposal? Just fund a position, it's gonna be one or the other, and base it on the strength of the candidate. Although that doesn't really solve the problem, I don't think. I think you gotta make a decision.
That just prolongs it.
Right, yeah, exactly. We're not making a decision, that's what we're doing, we're putting it off, so.
But I think what that opens up, and we had this discussion last week, is are we in the position right now to be making that decision? We're trying to set a budget.
Right.
And so we'll budget for one position, and perhaps, we shouldn't, if we vote on the budget, one's gonna vote no for the budget, the other's gonna vote yes, and it's based upon the specific position. So can we
Yeah, I mean,
approve a position and then
right,
argue about it
I
later?
support the budget as is and approving, one additional position. And, I mean, as far as the budget goes, I'm fine.
I just
With
like to
that.
recommend that we do bring before the board new positions. And I know it's been in the past, perhaps not, but I don't know if that's a precedent that we
I mean,
can.
that's really not a problem. We can
Right.
certainly do that. I'm just telling you the way in the past, we haven't been doing that consistently.
So I mean, just to get beyond this barrier, because I think we're all in agreement, we want to add at least one position. So.
Can we approve the budget with one position and do more research to see which one's gonna weigh out?
See, I'm not an educator, so I can't
here,
make a decision about what's better.
I think it would be important to hear from some of your, maybe people that are in the library sector, have them, just to be fair, and some of your elementary faculty, your principal. I think it would be important to hear from those people.
Sure, no, I agree.
How it's affecting them in a daily basis, in the classroom and in the school, and what the trends are in their testing results. I just think on both sides, we need to hear this before we.
And we did. So the whole project, going back to the process, and it's not a poll, like what we saw here. But the process was, back in December, right, at the school level, we instituted our future planning process. And that meant that every grade level and every department had a chance to share with the administration, principal, me, guidance counselors, whoever else needed to be there. That included custodial, that included nursing, that included elementary, that included grade levels, and that included the middle and high school departments and at middle school grade level teams. And so that's where a lot of this came from in the first place. So the support and the encouragement for trying to find a way to put the librarian in, it came across all, because it's not like no one was choosing one or the other. It's only now that we have to get there because we have a limited budget. But the support for both these positions was there, and for the library position was very strong, very strong. So it's still there. It's just no one's had to advocate for it in place of anything else. That's really it. Same thing with the math.
And there were other positions proposed that were
There were,
rolled out.
and we didn't put any in.
And
Some of these we didn't
fall
recommend
into
in the
By
beginning.
the time we started the budget, that had sort of been decided that the need was in these two areas, so.
So let me just make another general comment here. Right? This snapshot is what we see today. By the time we get to July 1st, there's going to be a multiple number of changes between now and July 1st. So we're going to approve the budget tonight. We're going to put it out to the voters. By the time it even goes to the voters in May, there's changes that happen that's going to affect the 18-19 year budget. Your budget never, I mean, as long as I've been here, you can never bring it in to exactly what you approve in April. It's just a moving target. So And I'll just give you a couple more examples. And special ed is the prime example here. We budget for a specific amount that we know today, that's our anticipated expense that's going to have to start in July 1st. It never happens. We're going to have teachers moving. Hopefully not, but you're going to have movement in salaries. So when those moves are made, that's an opportunity to make a change if you want to. So I wouldn't be too concerned about $70,000 in a $19 million budget. It's just things change so much that you're going to have the opportunity to make a decision later on. And if that's the way we need to go, that's the way we need to go. So.
And so I think what I'm hearing people say is we will approve the budget as it's presented, but with one position added, not specifying which one, and then give us more time to, get some other information in it to make the decision down the road. Is that correct?
Well, I think what Leonard was saying is it may be possible to do both,
yeah.
Because you don't know, it is a moving target.
But still within the budget, not pulling.
Not pulling,
Right,
not this
right,
budget.
right.
fund,
Yeah, exactly. With
Yeah.
this
I
budget.
mean, it's a small
Because you're
number
going to have
for
changes. I
everybody,
mean,
Right, okay.
So,
I'm good with that.
yeah.
I think we're ready to move on
Let's
then.
do it as is and then see what we can do. Works for me.
Thanks.
So I can put the budget 6-day notice card together and
Yes.
do the property tax report card for next week?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, once we approve it later on. So we'll move back to the regular agenda, and that brings us to reports to the board. The first one is the superintendent's report. Actually, the first and only one is the superintendent's report.
I'll try and keep it. I didn't know that our conversation would go for an hour and a half, so I apologize if this is too long. But and also that it has something to do with the budget. So, but I did want to share with you that along with the budget comes legislation at the state level. The state budget was an increase of approximately 3.6%, and that's what we've been tuning into all along. The total aid increase was 3.4%, and that's statewide. Our foundation aid increase was 3.7%, 2.9% though overall. So we've been tuning into all of that. But there was actually a lot more that was approved by the state legislature last week. And I just wanted to share with you some of those are. First of all, we could have had a cap on a number of other areas that did not happen, and that's good news for us. There was no cap on expense-based aid, no summer school special education cost shifts, so all this is good news. It could have hurt us even more than it didn't. However, there's one area that is going to cost us additional time and money down the road, and it's not going to happen next year. But not for us, it will for some other districts. The state also approved a requirement that some districts have to submit their per pupil building level allocations to the state for approval no later than July 1st of every year on a special form that is going to be a new one, and it's going to be primarily something that gets done in the business office. And this is going to shift from an all district budgeting to a school by school budget. So this is going to require a significant shift in the way we do business. It's going to be even harder at larger districts with multiple schools. So that's going to change for some school districts very soon. In our region, I think Malone is on the list.
I think Sable was too. I think I saw them on
Yeah,
so they're going to experience that right away. But all districts, including us, are going to be mandated to do this by July 1st of 2020. So this is what is typically referred to as an unfunded mandate. There's no funding that goes along with this. It's going to cost time and money. And so we just need to know that that's the case. Every time these new requirements come down, they become these unfunded mandates.
Is is the reasoning behind that to ensure that students, that an equal amount is being spent on students? Is that, what's the purpose of that?
The reasoning, if you were to look at, say, an urban school district with multiple schools, the criticism has been that in poor neighborhoods, sometimes those schools are funded more poorly, and in more exclusive neighborhoods, that they're funded better. And so there's been a lot of criticism there, rightly or wrongly. In some areas it's right, it's probably more so in other states. But here in New York State, some urban areas, you would maybe see some, at least suggestions that that was the case. So this is a way for the state to have more oversight over that. The state education department, though, who's going to have to approve these plans, they're already saying, we don't want it, because they don't have the staffing to do it. So it's going to be one of those new problems. You know, it's like when the Smart Schools comes out and they say, hey, great, we're going to give you all this money, we're going to create a whole new process, it's going to take you time, money, and it's never going to get done because we don't have the people to even evaluate them. We're going to be dealing with this, and we just need to know that that came through this year's budget also. Another thing that came through this year's budget was that school districts are now authorized to create local charitable funds to support the school district and to offset the impact of the federal tax plan that caps the SALT deduction. So again, you'd have to be following the news for the last few months to have a sense of this, but the federal tax law put a cap on state and local tax deductions. And that's going to have an impact on people's taxes starting in this year, 2018. So in order to try and find a way around this, the state government approved this option for districts to create local charitable funds, and then people would donate to those funds, be able to write them off as donations, and then 95% of their donation would actually then be credited to property taxes. So we don't know any of the details of any of this except that it was approved, so that's going to come out in the next few months also. But I think the school board's going to have to respond to that, because I believe that there's going to be some pressure from people who are going to be losing their tax deduction to have school districts and other municipalities provide that option for them. So we'll see what happens with that. There's also an option for replacing the state income tax withholding with the payroll tax. Maybe you've heard about that too. And that would, again, that would be shifting some of the way some of this tax money is paid, and sort of getting around the cap on state tax deductions. So sounds complicated to me. We don't know any of the details. This will be coming out, I'm sure, in the months to come, and we may find at the district level people saying, why aren't you doing this, or we don't want you to do this, or we'll see. So that's all coming out. Other additions to legislation. The state law required all employers to adopt a sexual harassment prevention policy, as well as a sexual harassment prevention training program. So we'll see when the details come out whether our policies, which are already in place, match what those requirements are. So that's a wait and see as well. In addition, maybe some good news, we hope. This new law supports the implementation of the statewide universal pre-K4. That's the one that we're invested in through the 1920 school year. So this is the $340 million per year. We get 350 out of that, 50,000. That we've been using to fund our pre-K program. It looks like that's been funded for the full 5 years. We haven't known year by year whether we're going to get it. We've been crossing our fingers, and so far everything's been happening. Beyond that, we don't know, so we'll wait and see what happens there. But it sounds like at least we're good for the first 5 years. The law requires schools to provide feminine hygiene products for students in grades 6 to 12 at no charge. Not an issue for us. We've been doing this for many years. But it will require schools to do that. The new law bans lunch shaming practices for students who are unable to pay for lunch. We've already been moving away from these practices as well. But again, this makes it mandatory. New law requires breakfast after the bell, which we don't do right now, but it won't require it of us because it only requires it of school districts where 70% of students are on free reduced lunch, and we're in the low to mid 40s. And then it does expand some farm to school money, $750,000 farm to school, and then it appropriates $10 million to support school lunch reimbursements for districts that purchase at least 30% of foods from New York farmers and growers. We certainly don't purchase 30% of our foods. We're probably more around 15%. So I'm not sure whether or not we'll be able to benefit from this, but we do have one of the more active farm to school programs in the state, so it wouldn't surprise me if we hear something about that. So there were other pieces of the budget, many pages of summaries, and some of them were very small, and some of them might impact us, something about benefiting computer science instruction and other areas that we might learn about later, but these were some of the ones that I see could have an impact on us in the weeks or months to come.
NISBA had a webinar that I sat through on the budget.
So it's better to have some of the pieces too, yeah. Sure. Yeah, some of these, in different districts, you might highlight some of the different pieces. Yeah.
And that's available as a recording there.
So that's one thing I wanted to share with you, and the other is just the upcoming school events and activities that we're looking forward to. So we're out of spring break, right? We're back in the swing of things. What's coming up? Well, starting tomorrow, the New York State English Language Arts exams will begin. It's a 2-day, not a 3-day process this year. This is grades 3 to 8. Math exams are May 1st and 2nd. So state testing tomorrow and Thursday. Tomorrow is also the BOCES annual meeting. I don't know if anybody's planning to attend that, but that is the meeting it's going to be in Malone. And last year I attended the one in Saranac Lake. It was very interesting, and they had good food.
Yeah, it's gonna be better up in Malone.
That could be. Thursday, a number of our foreign language teachers are going to be attending a foreign language conference called Foreign Language Day at the Crown Plaza right here in town, which is actually a regional conference that is free and is sponsored by our friends at the Adirondack Foundation. I don't know if you know this, I think we've brought it up a couple of times that we've received over the years lots of grant money from this special fund at the Adirondack Foundation that's financed really by one benefactor who believes in the power of world languages and has been promoting them region-wide. So this conference is another part of that. So we'll have participation from our district there. Thursday is also a policy committee meeting. Yes?
Yes.
Right, so we're getting ready, gearing up for that, right? And we also have our first guitar coffee house. And this is a new group. It's being advised by our high school art teacher, Alan Robinson. And I don't know if you've all met Alan yet, but Alan's new to the district. He's a veteran teacher, and he's doing a terrific job. And he's been really injecting some new ideas into the school district. It's been great to see what he's been able to
So
do.
where is the coffee house?
Library.
Library.
Yeah.
And it's open to the public?
I believe so.
What time?
6 to 8. Yeah, it's in that, and you'll see it in the newsletter if you want to go back to the last newsletter. What else? Friday and Saturday, our middle school science Olympiad team is. Are you still
Yeah.
working with the middle school team?
I have, yeah.
So Jeff's going to be there. Syracuse.
Yes.
Yeah. So they're going to Syracuse again. This is what, 3 years in a row?
3 in a row.
Yeah. So very exciting. Best of luck to them. We also have a couple of upcoming cross-country team fundraisers. I don't know if you've been following the cross-country team fundraisers. They've got a slew of them. They've been doing this slippery slope series of road races. And this is the last one, unless they're planning on winter lasting into May, which probably will. Right? And then Saturday's dodgeball tournament is also, next Saturday's dodgeball tournament is also part of their fundraiser. They are trying to raise money to send the team to compete at a meet in Orlando, Disney, which they've done before. So they got the money raised. They're really moving on this. And speaking of athletics, and this is maybe the other side of that coin, is it is still feels like winter out there, and our athletic season, which always is scheduled very optimistically, has had to postpone its first series of events. We're still, I believe we did send the team off to the kids off to a lacrosse game today, but baseball games and softball games have been canceled for the week. So we're not quite there yet, and I imagine our full spring season will all be squeezed into a few weeks sometime in May, as seems to be the case.
Last year they had a great collage up in the gym of Lake Placid spring sports, and they had the baseball team in just socked in snowbanks, and they had the track team. It was just they'd gone around and just done the photos, and it was just so great. If we've talked about putting together a brochure for the district, and that collage should be in it. It was just so, and all the kids were so happy and smiling. It was just a really great thing to see that
And, you know, and all
Yeah.
the seasons worked out, and it was just fine, and, it just was really funny. I was waiting for Aurora, and I turned and looked at it once, who did this? It's just great.
Lots of opportunities for pictures
Yeah.
this year too. So.
Yeah,
See how it
it's
goes.
just
That's everything I have.
perspective.
Great. thank you.
Questions or comments?
Questions? Good, thank you, Roger.
Thank you.
Information for the board, the big thing would be the report card. Does anybody have questions on that? We had that information presented earlier in the year. Not, we'll move on. Linking goals with the agenda item. Definitely the approval of the budget goes under, I think, a lot of things. Finance, students first and foremost, education. Anything else? Right, and we move on to the action items, the minutes we've approved with the consent agenda. So we'll move to personnel. We have the deputy treasurer appointment. The proposed action reads, upon recommendation of the superintendent, approve the appointment of Elizabeth Smith as deputy treasurer effective May 1st, 2018. Probationary period of 90 days will begin on that date through July 30th, 2018. Salary will be set at $50,000 per year prorated. This position is a 12-month position. This position is not a union position and is considered management confidential. Is there a motion to approve this appointment?
Yes.
Thank you, Colleen. Is there a second?
Yes.
Thanks, Patty. Is there discussion or questions?
How long is the overlap gonna be?
From May to September.
Okay.
All right, if there are no further questions, then let's please vote.
Let's see.
Do you want to tell me what you want me to vote? Yes? Are
Yes.
you doing yeses?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
The motion carries 7-4-0 against. It's nice to have that 7 number. We haven't had that for a while. The CSEA sick leave request was approved with the consent agenda. And the next one is, the additional action items would be the approval of the budget. The proposed action reads, be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby approves the Lake Placid Central Schools Administration Program and capital budgets for the 2018-2019 school year totaling $19,292,671 as presented. Is there a motion to approve this budget?
Yes.
Thanks, Jeff. Is there a second?
Yes.
Thank you, Joni. Other questions, further discussion? So, not, let's please vote.
Okay, I'm just gonna vote yes. For some reason, it's not coming.
Yeah, mine's not either.
Motion carries 7-4-0 against.
Yeah, it's
Thank you, Leonard and Roger, for your hard work.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's, my sense I started using this.
Sign back there.
So, that concludes the action items. Well, are there any, we've approved the special education packet with the consent agenda. There is a new packet to be considered for the next meeting. Are there any questions on any of those placements? Okay, then we move on to the adjournment. The meeting dates are, you can see April 17th is our next regular meeting, and that's when we vote on the budget, the BOCES budget. Following in May, we have a meeting the 1st, and that is a meeting, but we start with a budget hearing in Wilmington. May 8th is a regular meeting starting at 6:30, and that's a budget hearing, but here in Lake Placid. So we have the budget hearing first, and then we have the regular meeting after that. And then again, the budget vote is May 15th. And we do have three school board candidates now. Colleen, Martha Spear, and Liam Canale, who's a graduate, 2000 graduate, and is a lawyer in town, who's collecting signatures right now. So, yeah. Old agenda topics, we do have the superintendent's evaluation, that's going to be due the 27th. Meeting with Joe tomorrow, and then the next couple of days, you should have that sent to you and be able to complete it electronically.
Great.
Great.
So, and we all collated that. Anything else? No agenda items, new agenda items?
We have a meeting with Linstar coming up for the.
Thursday, yeah, 9 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, that's the Building and Grounds Committee's meeting with the people about the cameras, the security cameras, Thursday night. There is nothing else, then is there a motion to adjourn? Yes. Thank you, Patty. Is there a second?
Yes.
Thank you, Joan. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? We still got that. Okay, good. Thank you all.
Thanks, Mary.
Agenda setting, Roger.
Yeah, thanks.
Rick isn't able to do it before Friday.
Should I do Friday?
Sure. Let's do it. I'll take the day off for it. How about that?
Friday the 13th.
You're off Friday?